ball is life, plain and simple. You know, ask any baller. If you know, you know.
The game has changed, but it's still the same. You want it, go get it.
Shazam!
The inbounds pass comes into Jordan. Here's Michael at the foul line. The shot on Elo. The Bulls win! They win it!
Mike, you're honestly telling me that he's top 5.
Yeah.
Top 5 of all time.
No question about it.
Booker, this is for the win. Got it! Wow!
The ruling on the floor is made basket.
You know, one thing's for sure. Over at Valley Sports Plug, you're never going to catch us slipping.
With the first overall pick, the Phoenix Suns select
3, 2, 1, yeah!
Welcome to Pass the Outlet, episode 19. I'm your co-host, Michael Benjamin, joined as always by my wingman, Christopher Patrick. Chris, how you doing tonight, my brother?
Mike, I'm not doing too bad. I mean, there are about 25 other teams in the league that I would rather see in the finals right now, but I'm excited to talk basketball either way. Glad to be back here on Pass the Outlet.
Hey, we're ready, man. It's been about 2 months. We wanted to make sure to hit you guys right before the NBA Finals, which begins tomorrow. But of course, we got a couple of other things on the docket for tonight as well. We got our outlet point guard where we're going to take a deep dive look into the Boston Celtics and Dallas Mavericks. Then Chris has some awesome clips for Reddit Reacts, a little bit of Bronny and LeBron James to the Valley. I don't know, the Caitlin Clark initiation into the WNBA, and then whatever else we got. But we're in a weird spot right now for basketball, Chris. Obviously, the NBA Finals are right around the corner. The beginning of the WNBA season is really kicking off right now as well. And we got to ask Ray. I'm wondering what's going on with Slam Ball. I don't know what's happening just yet. Normally, I think they kicked off in July, but it sounded like they were going to push that back a little bit. Obviously, the big three in the summer as well. So we know ball doesn't stop, man. Ball is life. It continues all the time. But I want to start today taking a look back on the 2024 NBA playoffs, man. So I just got to jump right into it, Chris. Obviously, from our side, we know the Phoenix Suns laid a little bit of an egg, getting swept to the Minnesota Timberwolves. But, man, a lot of people are talking about the easy path the Boston Celtics had in the Eastern Conference to the finals, going up against some teams that were missing their big-name players, obviously. The gauntlet, which the Dallas Mavericks seemed to go through as well, going up against one of the favorites, I would say, in the Los Angeles Clippers and handling them in 6 games. But, Chris, before we go too deep, I want to know, what was your surprise so far from the NBA playoffs, man?
Oh, goodness. I mean, obviously, the Suns getting swept in the first round shouldn't be that much of a surprise, and it's hard to remind myself that this is the same playoffs that the Suns were in, and almost even forgot that they were in it at all. And I guess that's up for debate as to whether they were or not, the way they performed. But yeah, man, I think just looking at this bracket here and having watched some of these games, the biggest surprise to me was the Nuggets, the reigning defending champions, going out in the second round to the Minnesota Timberwolves. Now, they really put the league on notice with how formidable of an opponent they became, but then kind of ran into a wall once they got up against Dallas. Seemed to be a tough matchup for them. Only were able to steal one game when it looked like it was going to be a sweep. I guess on the other side, I'm a little bit surprised that the Bucks got bounced in the first round. Now, it was a really hot Pacers team, but they ran into some injuries later, which, you know, obviously getting swept by the Celtics out of the playoffs. If I remember correctly, Halliburton really didn't play much in that series, and that was kind of the start of their downfall. But yeah, man, I guess really not much of a surprise in the East for me, too much, because as we learned this season, the West is so back, baby. They are the superior conference through and through. And I think that even though it's a 5 seed against a 1 seed, it's going to be a pretty close matchup to see who wins the championship. But we'll talk about that.
Yes, sir. Hey, the truth of the matter, like you said, the gauntlet is the Western Conference, man. The best players seem to be out West. Couple of things that surprised me. I think were the Minnesota Timberwolves, like you said, making it to the conference finals, being able to topple the defending champions in Game 7 in Denver. Oh, wow. There were a couple of lackluster performances from Denver in that series as well. But I think some bigger surprises to me were on the Eastern Conference side. The New York Knicks being able to push the Indiana Pacers to 7 games. I think I was surprised that they did not win that series. And it kind of came down to Jalen Brunson breaking his hand at the end of it. But I was getting so many flashbacks of the Mike D'Antoni, early Phoenix Suns, mid-2000s era, when their bench was basically non-existent. Guys are having to play 46 minutes a night. And then what happened? Josh Hart gets hurt, right? OG Anunoby is hurt. He just tries to play it out, couldn't do it. And then obviously you had Jalen Brunson at the end. Man, like if you don't have an 8 to 9 man rotation that truly contributes to be able to give these guys some breathers, you see what happens. I guess some not surprising things were the 76ers not living up to, Joel Embiid, former MVP, and Tyrese Maxey, budding superstar within this league as well. I think they're going to have a lot of conversations to have in the offseason. But Indiana Pacers pushing it to the conference finals as well. They ran into the buzzsaw of the Boston Celtics. But Chris, I'll ask you, have you enjoyed the playoffs this year, other than the Suns going out in the first round? Like, have you been truly keeping an eye on the games and watching some of the best competition out there right now?
And Mike, I mean, I can't lie. It was really hard to stay interested in the happenings of the playoffs once the Suns got eliminated. Took me a little bit of a while to recover from that. But yeah, honestly, it has been some really good basketball and some good series through and through. I think what surprised me the most, and I hate to keep saying we'll get into it, but let's just go ahead and get into it now. A lot of the people said that the Mavericks wouldn't work with the 2-star guard backcourt in Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving, and they're proving all of the haters wrong. I think both of those guys are playing with a chip on their shoulder. I mean, Doncic has been knocking on the door of a finals run, honestly, almost his whole career. And Kyrie's been there, been to the mountaintop, won a championship. He knows what it takes. And they're just getting gelling at the right time. And I think that the injuries throughout the playoffs, though, have been huge. And I think that has almost hindered the competition a little bit, and how some of these series could have gone a little bit differently had those guys been healthy. I mean, I know you mentioned the Sixers and some of the problems they ran into. I think one of the big ones was kind of the health issues that Joel Embiid was dealing with, and not just the injuries. I think it was Bell's palsy or some nerve thing he was having with his face. And I think that, aside from the physical limitations, probably had a bit of a psychological effect on him as well. But from a basketball perspective, I think it's been a really good playoffs for the league and for basketball fans in general. And I mean, whether you like these two teams or not, I mean, I know I hate the Celtics, I hate the Mavericks, but I'm still excited for the NBA Finals because it's, in theory, the two best teams in the league going head to head for the championship. And I'm excited to see what happens there.
Chris, you hit the nail on the head, man. And like you said, it's time to get into the NBA Finals matchup, which is the Dallas Mavericks versus the Boston Celtics. And you're exactly correct. Both of these teams were the best teams in the NBA after the trade deadline. If you look at their records, Boston with the league-leading 25-6 record, and the Mavericks finished second with 22-9. And it really has come down to the Mavericks finding that gel after the trade for PJ Washington and big boy, oh my goodness, Daniel Gafford from the Washington Wizards. Talk about two guys who were in completely different positions over the past couple of seasons on really teams that are just trying to figure it out and figure where they're going forward with the Charlotte Hornets and the Washington Wizards. But man, Chris, I got to be honest. I think this is the best matchup that we could have honestly asked for, other than maybe the Nuggets going in and trying to go for a repeat. I don't know how much intrigue there truly would have been if the Minnesota Timberwolves would have won the Western Conference Finals. I know there was a lot of backing for Anthony Edwards and his so-on-so coming out party. I still have some thoughts. I think he needs some time to start understanding that he is the go-to guy. There were a couple of those games against the Dallas Mavericks where he was just giving the last minute opportunities off too much. But I have faith that he's going to figure it out here. But let's take a quick high level look here at this matchup between the Boston Celtics and the Dallas Mavericks, Chris. So this past year, they only matched up twice, as normally happens between Eastern and Western Conference teams. And Boston won both of them. They won 119 to 110 on January 22nd. Jason Tatum had 32. Doncic had 37. And then Boston blew out Dallas 138 to 110 on March 1st, where Tatum had 39 points and Doncic was the leader for the Mavericks at 33 points. Chris, I know I got a bunch of stats to throw at the people here, but I want to pass it over to you first. What's intriguing to you about this matchup between these two heavy hitters in the NBA, man?
Yeah, you know, we always talk about storylines throughout the season, throughout the playoffs, and especially into the finals. I mean, I already mentioned the chip on their shoulder that Doncic and Irving probably have. But you look at the Boston Celtics, so close to the finals last year, going to Game 7 in the Eastern Conference Finals against the Miami Heat, and just coming up short after a lousy performance from Jalen Brunson. I'm sorry, not Jalen Brunson, Jaylen Brown. So you got to think that between Brown and Tatum, those guys are really happy to be here and are laser focused in achieving their goal, or their hopeful goal, of winning that championship. So I think just from that perspective, these are the two best teams. They're both healthy right now and both have a lot to play for. You talked about Anthony Edwards. I mean, I think the moment was just too big for him. And it's guys like Tatum, Brown, Irving, and Doncic, where it doesn't seem like those guys really do get overwhelmed by the big moments. I mean, aside from Brown in Game 7 last year, but we could call that a one-off potentially. And I think with the way these rosters are constructed, I mean, you even mentioned it earlier, they have depth. And that is something, when we bring it home locally, that was a question for the Suns. It's like, how are we going to be able to do this with our lack of depth? And we weren't able to do it. So I think a lot of teams are going to be looking at what the Boston Celtics and the Dallas Mavericks did this season and try and replicate that by building a deeper bench. Now, I know that seems obvious, but at the end of the day, the proof is in the pudding, as they'd say.
True. Exactly. Yes, that was something that especially the Phoenix Suns were missing. But you just look at both of these teams, Dallas specifically after that trade deadline, adding those two pieces in PJ Washington and Daniel Gafford, and what they've been able to do. Really, if you just look at the playoff run and obviously the second half of the season as well. I mean, PJ Washington had some huge games against the Clippers and in this last series against the Minnesota Timberwolves, but averaging 13.6 points and 6.7 rebounds. Man, the big man contributors for Dallas are just, they're like yin and yang perfectly, right? You got the young guy, the freshman out of Duke, and Derek Lively, who's playing big time minutes, 8.6 points and 7.2 rebounds. And Daniel Gafford coming in, 9.2 points, 5.9 rebounds. They both are playing the exact amount of minutes, Chris, 21.8 minutes. So they basically just flip-flop. And another guy that you just think about, wow, I never would have really pinpointed this guy to be playing 30-plus minutes for a contributing team going to the NBA Finals in the Suns' very own Derrick Jones Jr. What a steal he has been for the Dallas Mavericks as a vet minimum guy. 9.8 points, 3.6 rebounds. His athleticism is still off the charts. But then you look at Boston. They have been just a well-oiled machine this entire season, Chris. We know this. The NBA community knows this as well. It was almost kind of a foregone conclusion, especially when they shored up that first pick and how things started to unfold. It seemed like it was just clear-cut that the Boston Celtics would make it to the finals out of the East. But, of course, we know Tatum and Brown. Derek White has started to really just put on his big boy pants, it seems like, and take a step up from his time in San Antonio. But, man, 17.8 points, 5.6 rebounds, 4.6 assists, shooting over 40% from three as well. But they got key contributors like Peyton Pritchard in 21 minutes, 7.5 points. Al Horford coming in, old man Al Horford coming in for Kristaps Porzingis, putting it up from outside in 30 minutes. Then they got Sam Hauser, who can fill it up from outside too. But, man, so Chris, when you look at this matchup, obviously you got your top two heavy hitters on each team, right? And Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. Then Dallas, you got Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving. Either than the star power leading these series, what are you seeing as really the keys for taking this series for either team? Whoever you're leaning towards, what are those keys for you?
Oh man, I mean, I guess we might have to do our predictions here at some point. I think it's a time-tested saying that I think is completely true and obvious, is that defense wins championships. I think whichever team comes out and plays the best defense is going to win this one. I think just from watching what I've seen of both of these teams is that everyone knows what their role is. They understand what is being asked of them, and they show up in the right moments. I mean, you talk about having the star backcourt. They can't do it on their own. They need those big guys inside that are able to rebound, move the ball, play defense. And same with the Celtics. I mean, you of course are going to lean heavy on the superstars, but it's those role players. You mentioned Al Horford. I mean, that guy is a veteran presence. He knows how to perform in big situations. It's nothing new for him, and the lights are never too bright. I mean, even down to the coaching. You got a couple guys here, like Jason Kidd is the head coach of the Dallas Mavericks, right? So he's a lot of experience in the NBA, been the head coach there for a little while now. And I think he's going to really be able to keep his guys level-headed and approaching this series. Joe, how do you pronounce his name? Joe Mazzulla for the Boston Celtics. I saw a clip from his press conference. It was either earlier today or yesterday, where they're asking him how it would be with the bright lights of this series. And he said, well, unless they change the lights in the arena, I think the lights are going to be exactly the same. Taking it a little bit literally there, tongue in cheek. But I think having that demeanor from your head coach of just being cool as a cucumber, approaching it like any other game, is going to be really crucial for these guys. If you can put in the back of your mind the fact that this is the last potentially 7 games of your season until the off season, then you just settle into the normal routine that you did for 82 games plus, and you get the job done. And I might not pick a team yet, Mike, unless you ask me to, but I think this one could go 7. Honestly, I really do.
I'm not going to ask you just yet. We'll give it some more time. Plus, we got the outlet point guard to look over a couple of these guys as well. But, Chris, I was listening to the Old Man and the Three, JJ Redick's podcast. Just some great dialogue when it comes down to the NBA game as a whole. Obviously, JJ Redick being a previous professional. It sounds like he's the leader for the Los Angeles Lakers head coaching job. But that's another discussion that we can have too. But he was talking about those exact things that you're talking about in regard to the mentality of these teams as well, right? Luka Doncic is, even though he's very fiery on the court, we know that he can cry a little bit. Trust me, it's part of the NBA game, so I'm not going to throw shade at him for that. But he talked about how he's an even keel guy, and he needs those kind of players around him. And what we've seen from the Dallas Mavericks as a whole is everybody stepping into their role and accepting it, right? It's for the better of the team, guys stepping into situations. Same thing when it comes down to Kyrie Irving melding with Luka Doncic. Kyrie has taken some steps in growth within his own game as well as he's gotten a little bit older. And everything between them on the offensive end doesn't seem forced. It's never like, okay, you're off right now, I got to pick up the slack. Everything is understanding matchups, understanding the push and movement of the game, getting to those best opportunities within themselves. And it's just been absolutely positive dividends for those two players as well as the entirety of the Dallas Mavericks team. And it's really got them clicking at the right time, obviously, ever since they made those trades at the trade deadline too. I think one thing they were saying is, at one point, right before they made those moves, they were 26-23, and they had just got blown out back-to-back games. One of them was against the Bucks, and people were wondering if they were even going to make the playoffs. And then that trade really turned things around. But then when you look at the Boston Celtics as well with Joe Mazzulla, he talks about living in the moment, understanding the opportunities that are in front of you. And if you reach the mountaintop, you can't take those kind of things away. And there's always still work to be done and improvements that you can make. And that's what it seems like this Boston Celtics team has done all year long. So it's really impressive to see where both of these teams have come from and how they are just clicking on all cylinders right now. But Chris, I got to bring up these clips for you. We got the outlet point guard today. I'm just going to roll through them and then we can break them down a little bit real quick. But here we go. First and foremost, let's see. Let's bring it back a little bit. One thing we know, Luka Doncic, he is a premier passer in this league, 9.8 assists. And he's a shifty guy, putting Rudy Gobert on skates. I still can't believe they made that switch right there and taking Jaden McDaniels off of him. But Kyrie Irving, one of the best ball handlers, if not, and the craftiest finishers in the game. You know I had to include that one. That was probably my favorite play of this season with the left-handed floater.
Oh,
but
man.
then you're starting to get contributions from these young guys. Once again, Derek Lively controlling the paint, man. And then Derek Jones Jr. using his athleticism. Unfortunately, this clip is against Yusuf Nurkic and the Phoenix Suns, but they are getting contributions from everybody that is playing right now. And then, like we said, the Boston Celtics, Jaylen Brown, just taking a step forward this year. Absolutely. We already know what Jason Tatum can do. His scoring prowess. He is not shooting that great from outside right now, only 29% in the playoffs, but there's 4 different guys, including Hal Horford, who are shooting over 40% for the Boston Celtics right now, and they shoot at a very high clip. And then, like you said, on the defensive end, that team defense leading the offense, Derek White throwing up a crazy shot here. But then I think the biggest underrated move of this past offseason for any NBA team was the Boston Celtics' ability to get Drew Holiday away from the Milwaukee Bucks, an absolute enforcer on the defensive end, a true pros pro, an absolute veteran, and it's led them to where they are here. But Chris, I'll just go ahead, throw it over to you. Let me know what you're seeing out of any of these, man.
Yeah, and what I'll say about Luka Doncic, he gets a lot of criticism or whatever you want to call it for not being the most athletic guy. He's not the fastest, not the strongest, can't jump the highest. But I will say in everything he does, he is extremely intentional. He doesn't waste a step on the court. And I think that is just proven. Like in this clip alone, you see he sees the guy cutting, waits for the perfect opportunity, nice, clean, one-handed pass. And not a single Lakers player makes any attempt to get to him. And same here, the step back, knows exactly what he wants to do with it, despite the defender closing out. Rudy Gobert just gets one step behind, but that's enough space for Luka to knock down that shot. And he has what they call in the gym range. He can hit from pretty much anywhere in front of that half court line. Now, we normally don't see him taking those ridiculous Steph Curry logo shots, but I know he's got it in his bag if he needs to. I think what Luka has done in only like just when you think he can't get better, it seems like he can. And I did want to say real quick, I know this isn't quite related, but when we talk about the contrast of the Celtics and the Mavericks and the journey they took to get here, like we said, the Celtics were in the Eastern Conference Championship last year, came up short. The Mavericks didn't even make the playoffs last year. So for Luka to take this team and turn it around has been, honestly, I love to hate it. I hate to love it. Either way, both ways, honestly.
I think the crazy thing, too, is I don't know if you know this stat, but this is one of the first opportunities since 1999 for the NBA scoring leader of the regular season to win a championship. Chris, I'll throw a trivia question at you. Do you know who that player was? I'll give you a hint. It was in the Western Conference. So 1999.
Oh, 99. Oh, man.
Another hint. It was a big boy. Dominant.
Was it Shaquille O'Neal?
It was Shaquille O'Neal with the Los Angeles Lakers. But yeah, it is impressive, Chris. And remember some of those other things that I talked about in regard to continuity within teams, right? It is something that has happened for the Boston Celtics, right? That core has started to grow together. And obviously they added some other pieces that have started to take them over to the top. Like when you think about Kristaps Porzingis and Drew Holiday. But their core, man, even guys like Peyton Pritchard, Sam Hauser, and then obviously those 2 guys that they took at the number 3 spot in Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. It's crazy to me, man. I still see those guys as like third-year pros, and both of them are like in year 7 or 8 now. But what else are you seeing from here, man? I guess, what do you like from the Dallas Mavericks second unit that gives you maybe kind of some thoughts that they could really pull out this series, even though they're the underdogs?
Yeah, I'll tell you one thing, watching them and these clips in particular, they play with confidence. They have full faith in themselves. And I mean, maybe taking a little bit of, the lesson from Luka of being intentional with what they're doing. I mean, even with that block right there, he stays on his feet, picks his spot. What is that? Derek Lively?
Yeah.
Yeah. Picks his spot, sees the pass come in, positions himself, knows what he's going to do, and jumps at the perfect time to get that block. Clean block. Derek Jones Jr. going from the 3-point line to finish at the rim through the traffic. It's just, you don't see that a lot from bench guys. Most of the time it's jump shots, layups, really picking their spots. And I'm not saying they're not picking their spots here, but again, being very intentional and very confident. And I think if they carry that confidence into the series, that they're going to have a really good chance to take it all.
Yeah. I got to look at the lines again. I think obviously the Boston Celtics are favored. I think they're minus 220 right now, and the Mavericks might be plus 180. But one thing I would not be surprised about to start this series, Chris, is if the Mavericks come out hot and split in Boston. Like you said, wouldn't be surprised if this one goes 7. With the top-heavy guys that you have, all-star, all-NBA, all-time players, right? You're not going to be able to stop them. So it's who's going to have the opportunities at the end of games to make plays. And I think both teams are really going to have those opportunities. Once again, for me, it always comes down to how do the role players fit within this? How are these other guys going to step up? And it seems like both of these teams are very well versed already within guys having to step up to different moments, man. I mean, you just think about Al Horford hitting that 3 against Indiana, even though they're down 5. That's a huge shot to make with under 2 minutes, right? And the Boston Celtics ended up winning that game. And then Drew Holiday, getting this strip here at the end to seal the deal. Even though I think that Drew Holiday he's probably the top 3 player on the Boston Celtics. There's some people who might put Kristaps above, who might put Derek White. Like, I don't know. You talk about an NBA champion who has been there and done that. And I still think it's going to come down to those role players stepping up to those moments, because there's going to be times where these best guys in Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving, and Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum almost kind of cancel each other out. So it's who's going to step up to the moment.
But what a luxury for the Celtics, right? To even have that conversation of who's our third best player out of Drew Holiday, what do you say, Al Horford, Derek White. I mean, any team would love to have those guys on their roster. I think the Mavericks are probably in for their toughest matchup of the playoffs. I think if you look at it objectively, how do you guard Jason Tatum? How do you plan for that? And when we mention all those other guys, you can't double team him. You can't collapse on him because he'll just whip it behind his back to the corner and get the 3 on you. I mean, Jason Tatum, love him or hate him, he's a big, lengthy guy who can finish from behind the line, finish at the rim, and can handle the ball. I know that's becoming a lot more common now, and I hate to keep ogling about it. I mean, we know Kevin Durant's been in the league for a long time, but when you see guys do it and do it well, it's very impressive. And I honestly think that's what kind of just Jason Tatum alone gives the Celtics a bit of an edge just right off the bat.
So the one thing when I think about how this series might break down, and Chris, I got to get your prediction here right after this, but I think the one thing that I lean towards in regard to the Boston Celtics is their ability to shoot from the 3-point line. They put up almost 40 a game. Like I said, they have 4 different guys who shoot 40+%, and they've been doing it in the playoffs, right? It's not just the regular season. And you have a really just solidified second unit that can come in and changes a pace. You got some decent size. I think the biggest question mark here still too is what happens with Kristaps Porzingis. I know it sounds like he's going to play in game 1, but he hasn't played in 5 weeks, right? He suffered that right calf strain in game 4 against the Heat. So he still plans to play. We'll see how it holds up, but that could be a difference maker, because then you could start leaning towards the Dallas Mavericks and their presence inside, right? Because we know Jaylen Brown loves to go off the dribble, Jason Tatum as well, get to the rack, get to the free throw line. But I guess I'll just throw it out there. When it comes down to the ability to shoot from outside and how it's such a big streamlined part of their game plan, I gotta go with the Boston Celtics, man. And this isn't just because of our nature towards the Dallas Mavericks. One thing I'll always give credit to, I would say, ourselves, if we can do that and toot our own horns, is we recognize game, man. We're going to give respect to those teams that deserve it. And the Dallas Mavericks absolutely are one of those teams for what they've done this second half of the season and what they've been able to do without these playoffs. So they're going to push the Boston Celtics to the limit, right? But I think it's still been too much of an absolute just train on the track season for the Boston Celtics, where things never truly wavered too much. I think the only ever lost 2 games in a row. They never lost more than 2. And I know the Dallas Mavericks have been playing at a very, very high level on the defensive end, but I think this is the year the Boston Celtics continuity takes them over to the top, and they're able to leapfrog the Los Angeles Lakers for the most NBA titles in NBA history. But all right, that's what I'm going with. I'm going Boston. I will say 6 games. How about that? So what are you thinking, Chris? How are you feeling in this one, man?
Boy, I mean, I would be really surprised if this series only went 4 or 5 games. I fully expect 6 at the least, and I really do think it could go 7. Both of these teams are scrappy. They're going to play hard. They're going to have the good coaching and the good ability to make those adjustments. I mean, the Celtics getting Porzingis back, that could be a really good thing, or it could be a little bit of a working out period. I mean, obviously they played with him throughout the season, but I just think Kristaps, man, he's like, I don't want to say what could have been. He still has a chance to be a name in this league, but everyone really hyped him up coming in, and he's just kind of bounced around. What he was with the Knicks and the Wizards. I think he spent a time he was with the Mavericks even for a little bit, wasn't he? If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, dude, that's the other thing. This might be kind of a stinker for us because we don't love these teams, but the storylines around this series are just incredible. Like you said, Kristaps played with the Mavericks. Obviously, Kyrie with his time with the Celtics, stomping on Lucky at center court and all that good stuff. But this is what the NBA was probably hoping for when they looked at the bracket, and everything kind of panned out the way that it did. So we're in for a treat, man. That's for sure. But wait, who are you taking?
I wasn't done yet.
Okay, all right.
I'm man. I mean, I think I made it pretty clear at the top of this stream here that I'm not a fan of either of these teams for different reasons. I mean, you think, Chris, you're all the way out in Arizona. Why do you hate the Boston Celtics? I really just hate all Boston sports teams when it kind of comes down to it. And the Celtics, I mean, they want to brag about their 17 championships when more than half of those came before, when there were only 8 teams in the league and half of the guys were plumbers. I mean, get the fuck out of here with that. So, I mean, they might get their 18th though. And I think, Mike, I mean, I don't want to say you swayed me, because I think initially when the conference finals finished up, I was like, man, I hate it, but I might have to go with the Mavericks. But when I look at it objectively, I take my heart out of the equation. I also think that the Boston Celtics are going to take this series. I think they have too many weapons, and maybe to say they have the bigger stars might be a stretch, but the more versatile stars. I mean, not to say Kyrie or Doncic are going to be limited by their height. They're going to play their game and not try and be something they're not. But I think the Celtics are also going to do that, and they just have a little bit more size, a little bit more cohesion, maybe having been more of a solidified unit. And that addition to add Drew Holiday in the offseason, I think, is what's going to take them over the top ultimately, because you mentioned his defensive prowess, but he can also get it done on the offensive end. So Boston Celtics in 7.
Okay, I like it. Yeah. Oh, hey, here's another storyline. You got 2 Jordan Brand guys going up against each other in Luka Doncic and Jason Tatum.
That's right.
Whoever wins gets their next shoe released before the other. I don't know. Maybe that's another storyline we could keep an eye on. I'm with you specifically in that Drew Holiday move, man. You're talking about a guy who's already been there and done that, and his defensive prowess, I think, is going to be able to limit either if he plays a little bit bigger than he is and goes up against Luka, or if he has to spend time on Kyrie Irving, that kind of stuff. The truth of the matter, though, at the same time, Chris, is I would not be surprised if the Dallas Mavericks won this series as well. But I'm going to go with Boston. and it's going to be a fun one. First game is tomorrow, June 6th. I think all games are either at 5 p.m. or 5:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time for us here in Arizona, or a little bit later for you East Coast folks, 8 p.m. or 8:30. So keep an eye out. Going to be a fun one, and I'm excited, man. I'm definitely going to keep my eyes all over this series, and I'm going to have some fun watching this one because at the end of the day, I truly don't have a dog in the fight. Even though as a Suns fan, you probably should be rooting against the Dallas Mavericks, but I'm just hoping for some good basketball, and I know we're going to get that. But Chris, with that being said, I think it's time for Reddit Reacts. So what do you got for us this time, man?
I got some good ones for you. I think you're going to like it, Mike. It'll really keep the conversation going forward. And I know we've talked about the finals matchup enough, so I think I want to take a break from that a little bit. We'll get it. We got some, but we're going to bring up this first one here. This is from Clay B in the r/Suns subreddit. He says, I don't care anymore. Let's make this happen. And it's a drawing of Timmy Turner with the Suns hat on going, please, God, let LeBron join the Suns because it would be so fucking funny. There's again, I think every offseason we hear, can we sign this superstar player on a veterans minimum deal? What was it last year? It was James Harden or Kyrie, someone. We thought we'd get one of those guys on a vets minimum. I don't know if there's any precedent for that, Mike, and correct me if I'm wrong, but is there any person that's been a star player earning max money at some point in their career that is still playing at a high level and signs for a minimum contract?
Oh, I could not pull that one out of a hat or the encyclopedia if I tried, man. It would be an absolute shocker if LeBron James were to take a vet minimum to come to the Phoenix Suns. And obviously we know that the conversation has been around his son, Bronny James. There were, I think, 10 NBA teams that reached out for private workouts, and he turned down all of them except for the Los Angeles Lakers and our Phoenix Suns. So there's a lot of hoopla has come around from that. But no, LeBron, even though he's a billionaire, right, you have to start thinking of these kind of things in a little bit different of a glass case, I guess, right? Where people say, he doesn't need the money. He doesn't need to do that. He could take a vet minimum, especially if he can play with his son here. LeBron James is also a businessman. If he understands what his worth is, it's not the vet minimum. And he's probably going to find out a way to work with that Los Angeles Lakers front office for them to make some kind of trades and draft Bronny in the second round. So he'll find his way to Los Angeles. And especially now with these rumblings that his podcast teammate in JJ Redick is the front runner for the Los Angeles Lakers coaching staff. You don't think they're going to sign JJ Redick to be the coach and not re-sign LeBron? No, this is all a pipe dream, but it kind of has me in the same thought process here. It would be hilarious if we would just sign all these aging superstars and be like, look at this incredible super team from 8 seasons ago. But I know LeBron is still playing at a very high level. That's just too many mouths to feed at the end of the day. It would be somebody who obviously you probably should still want on your team at the end of the day, but we didn't figure it out last year with Bradley Beal. I think adding another player like that would just be utter chaos for the Phoenix Suns. So they got to start working in different directions. But man, that'd be hilarious if it happened, man.
Man, that's some NBA 2K. You turn off the trades, you do forced trades, and do whatever you want, put this team together. But Mike, you hit the nail exactly on the head there. I mean, you can say it's a legacy play for LeBron and kind of look at it from a couple different angles. Like on the one hand, legacy play, good shot to get another chip in theory to pair up with those guys, but at the risk of not putting up the same stats points wise, especially. I mean, LeBron was still getting 25, 30 points a game last season. And if you come alongside Devin Booker and Kevin Durant and Bradley Beal, I don't think he would be able to do that. And would he sacrifice all that money, all those stats just to play with his son for 1 or 2 seasons? I don't know. What is he going to be, 40, 41 this season? So it's tough, but I don't know. The stars could be lining up to some extent. The Suns do have the 22nd pick, which is ahead of the Lakers. So we could draft him before, maybe twist the arm of the Lakers a little bit to get him to trade him over here. But Mike, I know a lot of Suns fans, while we're thinking about this is how they're kind of waking up every morning. This is again on r/Suns, the original gangster. Rise and shine. Morning. Did we draft Bronny yet?
Oh my gosh. Chris, if the Phoenix Suns draft Bronny James in the first round, I will lose confidence in this front office and what their true plan is moving forward.
Is that not such an Ishbia move, though? That seems like a real Ishbia thing to do.
Oh, big time. Big time. It wouldn't surprise me, but I would lose faith because he is not a first-round talent. How many points did he average in USC this past season? What, like 4.8 points?
Yeah, something like that.
I know it's not all about that. It's not all about that, but you have to think about where this Phoenix Suns team is at right now and the opportunity that they still truly have with the talent that they have in Kevin Durant and Bradley Beal and Devin Booker, right? You have to bring in pieces that are going to help contribute. And you're not going to have time to truly spend your last first round capital on somebody that is absolutely going to be a project in the NBA. Bronny James is going to have a lot of work to do to become any kind of a contributor in the NBA game. That's just the truth. So if they were to mess around and pull some strings and go back in and pick Bronny James at like the 40th pick, then I'm okay. And then at that point, we're going to have high confidence that LeBron James is coming to Phoenix. And then we will start having way different conversations than where we sit right now. But yikes, man. Like, you just have to think of what we have now and what the opportunities truly are. And to take him at 22 is an absolute joke, if you ask me. That's just the truth.
Yeah, no, honestly, like he's just not, he's not there. He's not ready. I think he should stay in college, but I think obviously he talks to his dad. His dad has for a long time expressed a strong interest in wanting to play alongside him. And he does have that bit of you can call it nepotism, that in where even teams are doing gymnastics moves to try and justify Bronny, getting drafted at all in this draft. I mean, you even got guys like Draymond Green on his podcast saying that, oh no, Bronny has a huge upside. He's made for the NBA game, yada, yada, yada. But then at the same token, you see at the NBA draft combine, I believe it's true that he was always listed at 6'4", and then he goes to the combine, and he only measures up at 6'1". And we're talking about like a 19, 20-year-old guy. I don't know exactly how old he is, but I think he's hit his growth spurt already. Did you see that, Mike?
No, I did not. They only listed him at 6'1"?
Yes, sir.
Oh, that changes things too, man.
Didn't double check it. You know, everything you read on the internet is real, so I trusted it. But
so obviously the NBA game, there are guys who can be successful that are 6'2" and under. I totally understand that. But does Bronny James have the skill set to be a smaller guard, to play the point guard position and contribute in that way? Right now, at this moment, I think the clear answer is no. Now, nothing's off the table, right? He's got the genes of his father in him, man. You don't think that he's going to go out and work as hard as he can and put together an off-season regimen to work within what he needs to do to be a successful pro? I don't doubt that. That's not something that I'm questioning, right? I think Bronny James is going to be able to come into this league and play for a number of years if he wants to, and he puts his mind to it and does the extra work that he has to. It could be literally on name alone, Chris. But once again, I have to look at this through the lens of the Phoenix Suns. We need to bring in a young core piece that can play possibly 20 minutes next year to help contribute in that second unit, whether it be a bigger wing, whether it be a power forward that can rebound the basketball, step out a little bit as well, or it be some kind of backup point guard to get more rhythm within the second unit offense. Like, there are other things that need to be addressed before the Suns start fucking picking LeBron James' son. Like, I'm sorry. We're living in a pipe dream world if that's the play with the first round pick, man.
Well, I think you only do it if you have a handshake deal with LeBron James that if we draft Bronny, then you're signing that vets minimum. That's the only way you do it. And even then, I still have a lot of questions. I mean, I don't want to say there is no precedent for legacy players coming into the league and being successful. We see it across all the sports, right? I mean, the Cardinals just got Marvin Harrison Jr. He's projected to be a perennial talent in the league. You look at Vladimir Guerrero Jr. in baseball, Even Cole Anthony isn't too bad in the NBA. But on the other hand, you see guys like, I don't even remember, Marcus Jordan's kids. They played college ball, weren't really good, never made it to the league. And let's be honest, like Bronny, if he wants to find success, you're right, he has all the tools. He is physically gifted, obviously has all the access to the money for training and all that. But he has to want it. At the end of the day, it's going to come down to how bad Bronny James wants to be successful. You see how hard his dad's worked throughout his entire career, came from nothing, made it into something. And even when he became a billionaire, and he's been 100 millionaire, half a billionaire. I'm sorry, 100. Yeah, that's right. Either way, LeBron works and he takes care of himself. And there's a reason he's still playing at a high level at 40 years old. So I think Bronny, if he wants it, sky's the limit, but I do think it's a little bit early for him coming out of college, just with where he's at right now with his game. But
yeah, 100%. I think it's early. He should have stayed. But I'm still leaning towards that first one that you put on the screen, Chris, for Reddit Reacts. I hope it happens. It will be an absolute. It would be so funny, and it will put the Suns more in the villain state that they already have started to become with Kevin Durant and the building of a big three. Let's do it, man. Let's get full-fledged into villain mode for the Phoenix Suns. Why the fuck not, man? Let's have some fun.
Yep, man, absolutely. So within that vein, I was going to go to a different one, but I think it's a perfect time to share this next little nugget. The Suns really are in their villain era, and for some reason, we live rent-free, especially Devin Booker. We live rent-free in many, many NBA fans' minds, and especially over there on r/Mavericks on Reddit. I got this little quick convo they were having. The Mavericks snipe says here, I've even seen Suns fans rooting against Boston for the finals. Good. They will get the Luka treatment soon enough. The Luka treatment. In the famous last words of Devin Booker, the Luka special. Bro, the Suns got bounced, it seems like months ago from the playoffs. Didn't really have anything to do with the Mavericks this season. Pretty sure we competed with them pretty well in our couple matchups. But they're still talking about us, Mike. They want the Suns to fail.
I think this just shows that the rivalry, if you could call that, between the fan bases themselves of the Dallas Mavericks and the Phoenix Suns continues to thrive in this day and age, man. If you think about the Luka special, this is what, 3 years ago now? Like, these teams are so different. There's so many different pieces around. You think about the Phoenix Suns within that team itself, pretty sure Devin Booker's the only one left from that team. And it's still, the Luka special will kind of live in infamy, unfortunately, in a negative way for the Phoenix Suns, man. But when teams are at different levels within success, right, they love to kind of throw it back in the face of the other ones, right? And unfortunately, we're catching the brunt of it once again right now. But like I said, Chris, I will give credit to where credit is due in the Dallas Mavericks. I don't fucking like them, though, right? I don't like them. It's the same way that they talk this kind of shit. I will give it back to them, but I will always show respect. That's for sure.
Hey. No, Mike.
That's why I'm always top 3 and hater of the year, right?
True. That's true. You are always a contender. But yeah, man, I mean, I just think there's no love lost. But as us being objective basketball fans, we can absolutely hate the guts of a player, of a team, but still recognize when a player is successful and really good at the game. And I felt that way, rest in peace, for Kobe Bryant his entire career. I hated Kobe Bryant. But as a player, man, you got to respect him. There's a reason he's in that GOAT conversation. And I think, honestly, Luka could be in that conversation, depending. If he continues the pace he is in his career, man, he's a special player. And if you deny that, then you just don't know ball.
That's fact, man. I don't think I could have said it any better, Chris.
Well, and so speaking of people who don't know ball, I found this little nugget on X. This was from about a month ago. We saw the recent news that Mike Budenholzer, the new head coach of the Phoenix Suns, wanted to bring in Darvin Ham onto his assistant coaching staff, and Darvin Ham declined. But I didn't really find anything too funny in relation to that, but I did find this nugget that I found hilarious. This guy, Bernie Knows Ball, who apparently doesn't know ball, said, as a lifelong Suns fan, I speak for all of us when I say we wanted Darvin Ham. Mike, does he speak for you?
Probably not. Now, Darvin Ham has worked his way up through the coaching ranks. I definitely would not have wanted him as a head coach. I think I would have been okay with him as an assistant because of his time that he spent in Milwaukee with Mike Budenholzer. But I wasn't pining for him, especially after kind of the disastrous, past season that he had with Los Angeles. And then I'm also not surprised that he declined it as well because of the rumblings of LeBron possibly come to Phoenix. The last thing he probably wants to do is deal with that again. Now, I'm not saying that it was a headache or anything like that, but there's a lot of expectations that come with LeBron James and the people that are around him. And he just dealt with that for the past 2 seasons. So he probably wants to step away, cash that check, and then we could see him in the future. Who knows, man? If I think the days of the Phoenix Suns firing coaches after 1 season are behind us. Budenholzer is going to have a little bit of threshold here. So who knows? Darvin Ham could end up on this coaching staff next season. We just don't know. But he doesn't speak for all of them. So Bernie, you might know a little bit of ball, but not at a very, very high level amount. So
yeah, no, and I'll make my position clear. I agree with you, Mike. I think as an assistant coach, I would have been fine with Darvin Ham. There is a reason he rose to the rank of head coach and got that opportunity to begin with. But we saw even with Frank Vogel, it has got to be such a hellish task to go and coach a guy like Kevin Durant or LeBron James, who, if this was back when the Celtics were winning the championships in the 50s and 60s and having player coaches, what was it? Bill Russell was a player coach for the Celtics at one point. Like, LeBron could be a player coach. And I think Darvin Ham gets a lot of flack just for the way LeBron and Anthony Davis and guys had reactions to things he was doing. I saw one clip, I didn't pull it, but it was a lot of Lakers fans dogging on Darvin Ham where he had called a timeout just to hold up the whiteboard, and on it said close out on shooters. And they were like, this dude wasted a whole fucking timeout just to tell him to close out on shooters. And there's clips of LeBron like rolling his eyes when he's drawing up plays and stuff. So it's tough. No, it's probably honestly a good idea for a Darvin Ham and a Frank Vogel to step away for a year, come back after next season and explore their options there. But I also want to mention or touch on what you had said there. Suns cannot have one and done coaches anymore. We have to stick with Mike Budenholzer no matter what happens this season. I can't imagine a situation where anything so catastrophic happens where you don't. I want to see him finish this 5-year contract and hopefully lead the Suns back to a successful place, if not the mountaintop. I mean, we really thought this last season was our best shot, and it might have been, but you still got time. You still got next season, I think, with these guys getting older, in more specifically Kevin Durant getting older. The window is getting smaller and smaller every day. So now's the time. I do think Mike Budenholzer, out of the available options, might have been the best choice for the Suns. So I'm happy that he's the head coach. And even though we didn't get Darvin Ham as an assistant, he's going to build out that coaching staff. And I have no doubt that we'll be just fine.
Yeah. Thank God we didn't get Darvin Ham and sign him to like a 5-year, $50 million contract as the head coach, dude. We already had the nonsense that came out last season when Frank Vogel was fired, where people were kind of laughing about him getting fiery in the locker room at halftime when we were getting our ass handed to us by the Clippers in our last home game, right? Yeah. Imagine if we got Darvin Ham writing messages of, preaching on clipboards. Yikes, dude. We don't need that. We don't need that. So, like I said, I'd be okay with him on the coaching staff, but not as the leader. That's for damn sure. No, not coming off the last season and everything the Suns have gone through the last 2 seasons. I don't think he would have been the right guy for the job. And to contrast that, what we're prescribing for Darvin Ham and Frank Vogel to do, take that year off. That's exactly what Mike Budenholzer did. He didn't coach last season. He took a year off, took care of his family business, got his mind right, and now he's ready to go. So I'm excited. I'm optimistic in that regard. Well, Mike, I got a few more things here for you. You mentioned at the top, Caitlin Clark taking the league by storm, for better or worse, getting a lot of hate leveraged his way. And I just want to play this kind of as we discuss a little bit. But Ghetto Gronk here on X says, WNBA players, anytime they see Caitlin Clark on the court.
And as you can see, this is some NFL highlight reel of the greatest hits. I'm sure you've all seen, if you're on the internet as much as Mike and I are, that picture of Caitlin Clark where her elbows and knees and forearms are just bruised and banged up to shit. Would you say she's being targeted, Mike?
I don't know, Chris, but one thing I can say is that the hazing of Caitlin Clark into the WNBA is a real thing, it seems like, man. If you want to call it targeting, sure, right? If you look at where the Indiana Fever are in this early part of the WNBA season, they are the second worst team in the WNBA. They're 2-9, but she is the leading scorer on the team, 15.6 points, also 5.1 rebounds, 6.4 assists, 1.3 steals, 1 block a game. She is turning the ball over a bit at 5.4 turnovers, but it's interesting to me, Chris, at what is happening in the WNBA right now when it comes to Caitlin Clark. Obviously, the biggest thing that happened was that push from Chicago Sky, Shanity Carter, and then some more comments that came out with,
Angel Reese.
Angel Reese talking about how it wasn't just Caitlin Clark who started to put women's basketball on the map, which is a true statement. It is honestly a true statement. Things really started to garner some momentum from that LSU and Iowa matchup in the national championship 2 years ago. But it's just something we haven't seen really, I think, ever in regard to the women's game, Chris, and how polarizing of a figure that Caitlin Clark is to start a career, right? With all the love, all the accolades that she got from her time in the NCAA. But these women are they've taken some thought to the praise and the love that she gets, right? And it seems like they're showing it through some force on the court, man. One thing I will say, if anybody who's out there is a hoop head, go ahead and watch, I think maybe 2 or 3 days ago from PTI with Tony Kornheiser and Michael Wilbon on ESPN. They had a great 5-6 minute dialogue in regard to what might be happening in regard to the situation with Caitlin Clark. Some of it was in regard to race, and I'm not going to dive into that. But some of it was also in regard to being careful in biting the hand that kind of feeds you right now, right? Like, I understand that some of these women feel a little bit slighted from the work and the effort that they have put in themselves to getting to this spot in their own careers, right? And Caitlin Clark coming in and putting the WNBA on a higher stage, it seems like right now, and the opportunities that are going to come about from more eyes on the game, right? Higher contracts, more, broader expansion, right? Possible expansion of the league itself. There's just so many more positives for the game that come from players like Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese, I would say. So I would ease on caution for some of these women. Is be careful, man. Like, not that they're going out to try and injure her, but they're trying to show her that it's like, okay, you had your time in the NCAA. This is a different level of play, and you're going to have to work your ass off to get where you want to go. So there's been some really great conversations that are on both sides of the spectrum, man. And I'm interested to see kind of where your thoughts are right now after the start of the season, because it seems like a lot of it has been centered around, the heavy hitting play towards Caitlin Clark, it seems like, to start.
Yeah, man, Mike, you really summarized it really well there. So I'll try my best to add my 2 cents to it and kind of just what I've seen from my perspective. I mean, like you said, like people are taking the race angle on it, and I think there's some reasons to understand that, but I don't want to dive into that here. I think there's plenty of other things to highlight, but shit, man, just to highlight the point you made about biting the hand that feeds. For better or worse, in these players' eyes, she is bringing so much attention to the WNBA right now, which is only going to have a net positive for everyone getting what they want. Mike, the WNBA only plays 36 games in a season. Can you imagine if they get a longer season? Maybe they bump it up to 50 or 60. that would come with more money. The more games you play, the more money you get. Then you won't have to go overseas and play for another team in the offseason. And it's going to be a net benefit. I did see people, suggesting that a lot of these players might be resenting because of the low salaries of these players and having to get money elsewhere. Caitlin Clark just got a massive deal from Nike worth something like $26 million. So they're looking at her like, she's rich. She doesn't have to worry about her NBA contract because she's going to be getting paid from State Farm and Gatorade and Nike and getting all these endorsements that isn't necessarily awarded to all these other players. But man, it is such an exciting time for basketball fans in general, and especially people who do pay any amount of attention to the WNBA. This last draft class might have been the best women's draft class we've ever seen. Angel Reese, Caitlin Clark, Cameron Brink. There's a ton of players that are just propelling this game into the spotlight and getting people talking about it. I did want to talk about what did you say her name was? Chandra Carter or something like that? Man, I think that was not even a hard hit. I think Caitlin sold it a little bit. I was like, shut the fuck up, guys. Like,
yeah, it was just a little side shove. I think she might have called her a bitch and then like pushed her. It's like, hey,
that's fine.
It's kind of part of the game, man. Like physicality is part of the game, man. And she's trying to let her presence known. So yeah, I did like how some people were going crazy, and it's like, you got to add flagrant 2 on there. She's got to be fined or like suspended. And I'm like, let's relax just a little bit in that regard. But yeah, it's just been eye-opening to see how physical that these women have been playing, specifically towards Caitlin Clark, Chris, because that's who the mainstream media is focusing on, right? That's the truth of the matter of this too, right? I, as a person who hasn't watched a lot of WNBA basketball in the past couple of seasons, I wouldn't be surprised if that kind of physicality was prevalent within the game, no matter what. But now there's a lot more people watching the game, and they're focusing in on Caitlin Clark, thinking that she's getting singled out. So maybe she is, but probably not, right? It's part of the game, man. It's part of basketball. Physicality, man. I love it, man. As long as you're not trying to injure people, play as passionately as you can at the end of the day.
No, absolutely. I mean, I really don't have too much more to say about it that you haven't already said, but exactly that. I will just emphasize that point that people want to say, oh, basketball's soft, the football is where the real hard hitting is. And yeah, you're playing in pads running full speed at each other. That's completely different than no pads on a hardwood court. Like, basketball is a physical game. There's a reason so many injuries happen. It's not because guys are soft. It's because it is a physical game, especially when you're playing at the highest level. And that also goes for women's basketball as well. And I think it's really great. I think this last thing I'll say is it's really great, the attention that the WNBA is getting. And I think it's only going to benefit the whole league in the long run.
True story, man. I'm excited to see where the WNBA game grows and the game of basketball on the women's side in general, man. Like we talked about, there's some up and coming stars in the NCAA as well, but we're in a good spot with basketball, man. Chris, you got anything else for the people tonight?
Nah, man, I think that's about it. I think I'm more excited for the NBA offseason than I am the NBA finals, but still going to check it out. Still going to tune in, hoping for 7 games so that we can squeeze every last drop out of this NBA season and watch some good basketball.
True story, man. I'm with you, man. Specifically because, unfortunately, our team, the Phoenix Suns, are no longer there. They're going to have a lot of decisions to make this offseason, but at least they've already made the main one with their head coach. Congrats once again to Coach Mike Budenholzer for joining the squad. We're excited to see what happens. But Chris, man, it's been too long. 2 months without talking about specifically basketball. We can't do that again, man. We're going to have to get back in here a little bit faster. But for everybody who's joined us today, everybody watching on playback, we really appreciate y'all. Make sure you follow us at AZ_VSP on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and Threads. Drop a like, leave us a follow here on Valley Sports Plug on YouTube. Got a lot of awesome things coming up this summer. Rumblings of a new, different type of pod coming up. I will save that for a broader introduction for the people. But man, Chris, I'll pass it over to you one more time. If you got anything else before we call it a night, man.
Yeah, man. Nice little teaser. I mean, Valley Sports Plug, man, we just keep growing and growing. Sometimes we bite off more than we can chew, but we're chewing, man. We're hungry. We want to eat. We want to keep getting you this content. We love talking about sports, especially Valley Sports. We love doing fun things like trivia streams, and we're just going to keep bringing you content. Like Mike said, make sure you like and subscribe and let us know in the comments below how we're doing, what you would like to see, and what you think on what we're saying. But Mike, really appreciate you having on, and definitely agree we're going to have to do Pass the Outlet again sooner rather than later.
Let's do it. And once again, this was Pass the Outlet, episode 19. I'm your co-host, Michael Benjamin. That's my wingman, Chris Patrick. See you guys next time. Peace.
One, two, three, four.
Ball is life, plain and simple. You know, ask any baller. If you know, you know.
The game has changed, but it's still the same. You want it, go get it.
Shazam!
The inbounds pass comes into Jordan. Here's Michael at the foul line. The shot on Elo. Ah! The Bulls win! They win it!
Mike, you're honestly telling me that he's top 5.
Yeah.
Top 5 of all time.
No question about it.
Booker, this is for the win. Got it. Wow. The ruling on the floor is made basket.
You know, one thing's for sure. Over at Valley Sports Plug, you're never going to catch us slipping.
With the first overall pick, the Phoenix Suns select
3, 2,